This is the Last Coffee House. Are you making a movie? You might think that as a director you'd have complete creative control, especially as a writer and producer as well, to bring about your creative vision. That is apparently not the case in 2019. It's also not the case that skin color is a superficial difference between individual people that should have no bearing on determinations of character or employment. No, it apparently should be a determining factor, and people should only empathize with people who look like them on screen, so that we are further balkanized into groups based on characteristics we can't change. Tarantino's making a movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, based on the Manson murders, and it turns out the cast is a little too white and too male. The article is called Something. I don't remember the title. It's written by Christian Allaire from Vogue magazine. It opens with a reference to Me Too, relative to Quentin Tarantino. As always, it references people on Twitter as the outrage, the source of outrage. It stars DiCaprio and Pitt and Michael Madsen and Kurt Russell. One person said, quote, "Guess none of these folks insisted on an inclusion writer." End quote. Another one said, quote, "I'm not complaining about the lack of diversity because unlike in other instances here, it actually makes sense based on the plot and when it's set. But in general sense, I'm just tired and annoyed of this being the standard template for Hollywood representation," end quote. And then it references the Uma Thurman car crash that happened on the set of Kill Bill 2, I believe. Okay, those are the contents of the article, and this is my response. I am so absolutely tired of this whole idea. Everything around this concept I think is absolutely disastrous and destructive. It's hilarious initially to lump Quentin Tarantino in the Me Too movement, which had fundamentally important things to say, and I don't say that flippantly. I don't say that as just a hedging, as people will do to make it seem like, oh no, see, I'm with it. I don't care about any of that. It was an important point to get it out there that people can talk about this kind of a thing so that it's not internalized by either side. But so apparently the criticisms, they had a link to a story about Tarantino, something about he knew about Weinstein and all of his predations, and therefore he's somehow complicit or something like that. And if he knew and didn't say anything, that's wrong. He should have said something. There's somebody in this little triad that definitely did know and didn't say anything, and that's kind of it's a curious thematic element of this whole idea, because one of the big things that this article does, and a lot of the media analysis does when it comes to Me Too and Uma Thurman and Weinstein and all that, is that it completely strips the woman of any agency or power or anything like that in the rhetoric, in the way that they use the rhetoric. So in this in particular, I'll get down to the whole car crash incident that's supposed to implicate Me Too for some reason. So what happened was, apparently, there was a scene where Uma Thurman was supposed to be driving a car fast down a road, and Tarantino's trying to get this shot. And I remember the shot, it was over, the camera was like over the car, and you could see her, and you could see the car going down the road. She was supposed to drive at a certain speed to get the right look that he was going for. And he apparently insisted that she do this, and she did, and in the midst of, I saw the video, in the midst of it, she got into an accident when she's trying to drive this car down this road at this speed. So the criticism, and when it all came out, and this, again, it's in the midst of Me Too revelations, the criticism is that he forced her to do this. And I just can't imagine. That is such a patronizing, just complete nullification of a person's agency to say that she was forced into doing it. She's not an adult. She doesn't know what's safe and what's not safe. She couldn't say, no, I'm not going to do that. That is utter insanity, and it's so completely patronizing. And yet that's the narrative that is spun out of this. She absolutely could have said, no, I'm not doing that. She's absolutely smart enough and adult enough to say, well, driving at this speed just isn't going to work for me. She also could have practiced a few times or something like that, sped up gradually or something. But it's absolute nonsense to just say that, no, in this particular instance, she just doesn't have any agency. She was forced to by the evil man. Ugh. Anyway, diversity in film, especially when it comes to actors, is a call for people to be more superficial. It's specifically saying that people should only be inspired by or feel empathy for people who superficially look like them. That is problematic in so many ways. It's psychologically damaging. It specifically sets up demarcations between people on the basis of those characteristics and perpetuates those demarcations. And like I said, it's specifically telling people that you should be interested in people who look like you. That's what it is. That's how deep or complex you should be, is that you should be interested in people who look like you. It's more short-term fixes for deep problems that are built within our psychology related to in-group preference and all that sort of thing. And it's the short-term fix of saying, yes, let's completely treat people differently on the basis of their skin color. That's not the way to approach it. That's not a fix. It's just going to cause more problems long-term, no matter how much you want to virtue signal on the front end. This whole concept of dividing people in this way, whether you like it or not, that's how it's going to spread, is that the meme is going to be that people should look or be interested in or inspired by or empathize with people who look like them. That's what's important, look like them. The meme should be that you should look to anybody. It doesn't matter what they look like. You should look to anybody and be inspired or be interested or have empathy for them for deeper reasons. But that's not the meme. The whole idea here is that it is superficial. It's completely superficial. And that's all it's about. You don't have to have any other thing in common. You don't have to have any other similar interests or backgrounds or anything like that. It's literally just they look like you. So be interested. And I'm tired of talking about this idea, but I mean, it's one of the least interesting. The whole concept around the conversation of race right now is one of the least interesting on the planet. But I feel like it's necessary. All right, so let's attack myself. Liabilities. I don't even know if there's an expert that exists that specifically has to do with this field. If it does, I have lost faith in humanity, in the humanities. I don't know. I've lost faith if this exists. It's not something that's a real idea. It's something that takes place of short-term making people feel better. Anchor, this is not a complex claim, just that it's really stupid to demarcate people on the basis of a characteristic that can't be changed. I think that's stupid and that's pretty straightforward. So the weight is 10 pounds, we'll say. And bias. There's a less chance in this particular case for bias than you might imagine, but there certainly could be, just like with the other ones, the whole social justice stuff and the fact that I primarily self-made as opposed to having inherited anything could potentially disproportionately disenchant me with these kinds of ideas. So have to be considerate of that kind of bias. But anyway, so that's that. Can we stop separating people on this basis? Stop balkanizing people on this basis and start really doing the groundwork of laying the foundations instead of just trying to keep building up the house of cards? And we start talking about, you know what? It's not a matter of their skin color. What are they doing? What do they think? What are their interests and ideas and politics? What is the complexities of their personality? Why don't I look for people on those bases instead of this one? Why can't we get there? Whatever. That's it. That's the last coffee house. All right. Thanks. Bye.